Okay, people, still the same day. What is it? April 27th, 2021. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Do you see this? Right? Okay, look at this, people. And then I've got more over there. Now, the first thing, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what that 35-day pleading period is. I don't know if it's from April 1st, 35-day count, or from the time that they responded on April 21st. If you notice, they waited until April 21st. Okay. Right? I went to the courthouse. Actually, it was April 15th, the day that I got to identify Sierra's body after it sat in cold storage for 19 days, people. Okay, basically. And, you know, the coroner just called me up and said, come pick up the body. Anyway, wasn't that simple now, was it? 19 days later, then I got to identify Sierra's body. All right. Now, I don't have Sierra's medical files because it probably would take 2 boxes full, right? Not to mention her files at the clinic, which would probably be another box full, okay? In terms of, it would take up a shelf and a half just for Sierra's medical files, right? The other thing is, so anyway, I was there at the courthouse, but you couldn't get in. You had to do everything through a drop box. So then I had to go get the money order, which I did on the 16th. Then I went back on the 17th because I had someone drive me back to New Westminster. I dropped everything off in the drop box, and they didn't process everything and anything until April 20th. So if you notice, when I served my government through registered mail, they got it the next day, okay? They got it that morning, people, right? Like at 6 o'clock in the morning, because it shows on the tracking record with Canada Post, okay? So they had 20 days. They sat on that for 20 days, people, and they specifically dated it for April 21st because it's like a slap in the face with what they did with ShaMay, right? Because they disconnected the so-called the machine and pronounced her dead for the 4th time, 3rd time at the hospital, right? On the 19th, right? But they didn't process the notice of civil claim until the 20th, even though I was there on the 15th, and you couldn't access the court registry, right? And like I said, I came back on the 17th, put it into the drop box after I got a money order to verify that, you know, that was all in the making before the 19th. And then they stamped it on the 20th. And then they sent me their response on the 21st. So that's kind of like a subliminal slap in the face. Like they're taunting me. That's what they like to do, right? That's what those types of individuals like to do as they talk with forked tongue, telling you how they're going to help families. Well, you can see how much they help families, people. Okay, this is just a part of it, all right? Okay, this is the stuff that I'm supposed to, document page by page by page? I'm not too sure, okay? Hold on a minute. Okay, so the other thing is, I don't get the privilege of spending taxpayers' dollars to fuck people around, basically, and destroy lives, okay? And then prop up my friends as I do it in terms of, you know, birds of a feather like to flock together, okay? So this is my little war room one. We remember this room, right? Now, I've got Uncle John's stuff. I got papers all over. There's binders. You can see them over there. What we're going to do, though, is I'm going to pull out all this stuff, okay, here, because I've been sorting stuff out. I'm going to get up into this stuff, and I'm going to give Tisha about 3 of those bins because, you know, they have craft papers and stuff in them. And, you know, little ShaMay likes to do art. So I told Tisha, you come and we're going to start going through this. And I've got papers. I've got paper up in there, you can see. So I'm going to be giving Tisha a whole bunch of paper. So that's what I've been doing. I've just been kind of going around, you know, liquidating on things, right? And so if you're wondering what this is this is all my pawn stuff. I pulled this out from the shed, okay? This is that bag that I just recently found. I took most of it out, but it's not. Some of it I have to move. Anyway, I'm going to move all this stuff out. Here's another bag that I just found, right, with that person's belongings in the garbage can. Oh, and by the way, that little house apparently is going to be tore down. Okay, there was people living in that house. They all got kicked out, and that house, from what I'm hearing now, down the road, it's going to get tore down because all these rich individuals from overseas are coming in and buying 4 properties at one time, and within a year 4 of those houses, if not more, are all going to be ripped apart, and that's just going to displace a whole lot of people into nothingness with lack of affordable housing, okay? And my block is coming up soon too, but we're not talking about that. So you see this bin here, okay? Now the first thing I have to do is I have to find the court rules and guidelines. I'm pretty sure I have 2 separate binders in here that relate to that subject, because I don't know what 35 days of the proceedings is, because if they're basing it from people, if they're basing it from the 1st of April, and it's already the 7th, I don't have that many days left to get to freaking court. They didn't leave me that many days, people. When is the 35-day pleading period? From the time they answer me, or from the time that I serve them? So I got to go in there and find these court rules and figure that out. Not to mention phone up the library, and I guess I'm going to have to go to the library at the courthouse like ASAP and fill out a paper so that they go to court. Okay, they can face me in court, people. All right, I don't have binders upon binders upon binders upon binders, wasting space, you know, making everything so freaking heavy, right, in terms of paper piling up and binders and, you know, I mean, like how many boxes of binders do I have to come into court in order for these people to say, oh, she's just rambling with her binders now. You know, look at all those binders. Right? Look how frivolous she is. But yet, if you go to a court case, right, and you watch them, they'll have like boxes and boxes and boxes full of binders. The problem with that, though, people, is if you hand them a document, you have to do everything in 3. You have to give 1 copy to the judge. You have 1 copy, and you have to give 1 to the person that you're suing. I don't got that kind of money. Again, I don't get to use taxpayers' dollars and just, you know, spend so I can remain a criminal. So, you know, with that said, it makes it really hard to pick what's important here when so much of it, maybe not all of it, but so much of it, like Andre's files. I got Andre's files, part of them, not all of them, people, but part of them back after I got Andre back, the lawyer that was working with me on that. He gave me a whole whack of shit about this thick, okay? Right? And some of those files have misinformation in them. You can almost say they've been falsified with misinformation that need to be corrected, and that's only parts of the files, okay? That's evidence, people, not to mention what I have of my own files. And then if they want to get into more files, well, you know, they can do that. By all means, they should, because when they do that, they're going to realize that they fucked up. Well, they knew that from the very beginning, and they dragged it out. And then 15 months later, you know, wheeling and dealing, right, just to told that, well, if you settle now, you get your grandson back in a week. But if you don't settle, it's going to drag on for months and months and months and months, and you never get to see your grandson again until it's all said and done. Well, what would you choose after 15 months, people? I didn't really have much of a choice, right? He was just a baby when they took him. He was 28 months old. I'm just using that as an example. So what, am I supposed to log that 500 pages in terms of just what I have, in terms of documents that relate to Andre and when I was fighting for him in court? Okay? Because what? How do I list that down in documents? Andre's documents. Maybe I should just do it that way. Uncle John's documents. Andre's documents. ShaMay's documents. Amari's documents. Sierra's documents. My documents. Right? And then, because ShaMay, when she was alive, was typing out the document list for me, in regards to Uncle John. I mean, I'm going to show you this in this video because I'm going to get into that bin, and that's where I'm going to start, okay? Because when I go to court, I'll file some kind of list, but it won't be the whole list, and that's the point, people. There's too much of it, okay? So if I'm rambling, it's only because the government keeps kicking me and punching me and stabbing me and fucking having me up, strung up with hooks and shit, people. Okay? My family has taken a lot of hits because of government corruption and employees out of control, never being held to account for the nefarious activities that they use within their positions of power to steal money and hurt people. This is the rambling. All this paperwork that isn't even my paperwork. ShaMay's medical files from the hospital. Okay? How dare they say I am rambling when I've got ShaMay's medical files from the hospital? As I lose my own family doctor asking for the clinic files. Okay? And as they're going on talking about how they're trying to help families. Just another BC Liberal government with their Family Day. Yeah, bullshit, people. Bullshit. So anyway, I think the best thing for me to do, is just get the documents list that are typed out from Uncle John and photocopy them. And when I go to the courthouse, bring them with me. Right? And deal with that freaking thing. If I have to mail it, they'll tell me just mail it. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to sign it and give it to them so they know that I've received it. That's just a basic, did you receive it? Yeah, it's confirmation. Outside of that, what? I have to call them into court. Okay? And that's through another form. And then they're going to come and they're going to ask the judge to dismiss it because that's what they did with Uncle John. If my memory serves me correct. It's just, I don't know if I've got only a few days left. Because for all I know, people, I'm going to call up the courthouse and I won't be able to book the library to get the right form. So guess what? They win by default because they shut down the fucking courthouse, basically. And they'll make it impossible for me to be able to book in a time with the library to get the right form so that I can file it with the registry. And then they'll have to come to court, and then the judge has to give me that little freebie in terms of an amendment, and I'll remind the judge that it's not rambling, right? It's real life. That's documented, and it's his responsibility to sift through it and figure it out and make a wrong right. They love this shit, people. They just feed off of it, right? That's why it doesn't stop. That's why there's almost 2,000 people dying a year now in British Columbia, Canada, directly related to their analog, quote unquote, fentanyl. Where nobody really ever goes to jail. If anything, they get a pat on the back for being an addict. Here, let me help you. Yeah, okay. Let me help you until we can lure you to your death. But they're not going to look at that, right? Because it's too close to fucking home for them. So anyway, I'm going to get into that bin, and I'm going to show you my documents, binders, and that's what I'm going to start photocopying tomorrow. In terms of they want a document list, I'll come in with that. Okay, and when I get to court in front of a judge, I don't know what kind of judge I'm going to get, people. You know how it goes, right? And I'll just tell them, where do you want to start? That's your job, to listen and to look for the criminal activity within the notice of civil claim to make the wrong right. And then I'm going to dig up my rules and guidelines and all that other stuff for the court. And when I get to court, when I get to the courthouse, I'm going to spend some time to sit out there. I'm going to see if I can write a little petition as I go through this process. And I'm just going to plant my ass on those freaking courthouse steps and with my little sign, please help me. Please sign the petition. Please step up to the plate. Please do something. Just do something, just don't walk on by and think it's never going to happen to you just because you don't hear about it. And when you do hear about it, don't ignore it, because just because you think that you're going to ignore it doesn't mean that somebody close to you in your lifetime isn't going to have it happen to them. Okay, so I'm in here now. I don't got a lot of room in here, people. No, not at all. Alright, I've lost my life in this house. Yeah, all this paper, all this nonsense, all this hardship, all this distraction, all this destruction. But, now I'm starting to think about my grandkids and what their future's going to be like over the next 10, 20, 30 years at the rate that we're going, okay? And I personally don't think it's going to be that great. I'm just trying to move this camera. This is YouTube. There shouldn't be no rules. Okay? So anyway, gonna walk you through it. I was talking to a woman in Arizona today on the phone, and she's inspiring me. She says I inspire her. Well, I feel inspired by her right now, people, because it's very hard to come in here and wrap your head around, first of all, putting all that rambling together so that it makes sense, so it doesn't become rambling. Although I don't know how actual official paper documents, those kind of things, can be considered rambling, but it is. That's what I turned on the camera for. Now I remember. I think what I'm doing here is I'm inadvertently not realizing that I'm combining, but it's hard not to think like this when you've been through the experience I've been through already in a Supreme Court, right? But the thing about the provincial government, it's supposed to be separate from the court on a supreme level in terms of federal court, right? It's like you don't mix religion and state together and govern. This is why what we've got going on right now with this satanic governance that imports itself into all governments to some degree through that legion. Forget the union. It's a legion, okay? They're not supposed to be governing the general population any more than the Muslims are supposed to be governing the general population in terms of like Muslims, right? Or the Hindus, or the Buddhists, or the Christians, or the Catholic, right? You get my point, right? The Punjabis, right? The indigenous people, in terms of their spiritual religion. Doesn't matter what the religion is. They're not supposed to participate in the governance of a general population. So therefore, they should be at arm's length with the Supreme Court of Canada. However, they're not. And I think that's why I get so defensive. Right? The courthouse, the judge, is supposed to be completely impartial, people, and look at both sides and not just take one side for granted in terms of what they say is true, because they're quote-unquote the province, versus Miss Chorney, who likes to ramble, right, and be scandalous and embarrass herself on YouTube, right? You know, the court is not supposed to make that kind of character judgment, okay? They're supposed to look at the facts. I showed you a whole bunch of fucking facts, okay? I just don't know how to write down 500,000 facts in terms of page by page by page by page to get to the gist of what everything is saying, as if you can understand it all in one day. Obviously, I'm getting riled up. This is why it's hard for me to keep that steady pace, because I'm so boxed in with all this paperwork, and I've got like, a whole stack of books like this just around the body in terms of the anatomy and that type of thing, so that when I go to court for ShaMay, quote unquote, right, I understand a little bit of medical terminology, because I'll never be in a position where I can draw on public tax dollars to pay for bias witnesses for my behalf to squash my opponent as I go online and say, we're here for families, okay? I don't know what kind of fucking family you're here for, but you're sure in the hell not here for my family. Because if that was the case, people, I wouldn't be where I am right now, getting all stressed out at 11 o'clock when I should be, at night that is, when I should be going to sleep and get up and have some energy to look after my grandkids, as well as work in a yard that I know that the minute I'm fucking finished and it's all said and done and it's looking really good, the big rich property developers are going to buy up the 4 houses on this block, and they're just going to come in with a freaking bulldozer, mark my words, and they're going to just mow everything over that I've been doing for the last 11, 12 years of my life. After I've been kicked out, that is. Literally kicked out. Because, property development, that's what manufactures wealth in this province. Only for some people, though, right? You had to get in early on the fucking game in order to be able to capitalize off of that today. Anyway, this was something that I was working on. What it is, but I have to move it, right? But I can't have it out on my porch or in the X Club because, everything leaks out there. So, right? And if I had it downstairs at one time, but it got tossed out into the garage, then it got all kind of wet and moldy and, but it was such a cute little thing. I didn't want it to get ruined. So I've actually washed it, bleached it, sanded it, painted it. I painted it, right? I stuck it back on because it got wet and everything, right? There's another piece here that I can screw back on that's a wipeout board, okay? For my little granddaughter, Alea May, or maybe even Amari. But I don't really have a place for it. That's the problem. But I think I can put it away once I get this wipeout thing on there. And that's nice now, right? That's why, if you're wondering why that was here, because I wasn't quite finished on it. I had to restore it, right? Because I didn't want to throw it out and then you know, maybe come across something similar another day when I had money, if I even got to that location to find it in the first place, and then buy it when I already have it, and it just took a little time to restore it, right? And it's almost like new now. I'll just put it in Andre's playroom after I put on the wipeout board. But that's why that's here. I'm trying to find my way in here, people, so that I can, you know, I'm looking for the court rules right now and the guidelines. I need to know what that 35-day pleading is, but I already know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it so I can navigate in here. Obviously, I'm stressing before I even start, right? But you know what? It's something that it is what it is. Right? And if I have to, I will file another one for Sierra. Honest to God, I swear on everybody's life that's been in my life that's no longer here, okay? All right? Now, I keep stuff like this. That's pressing flowers just because, right? But stuff like this, you know, I keep, right? I'm going to send a book to Lady P in Arizona. Tammy, you still have to contact me through Gmail so I can get your address and pop a book in the mail, right? I might just simply pop it in something like this, right? Do it snail mail. Hopefully it won't get lost. And then this way it's a little cheaper, right? Otherwise, if I have to go register to the States, it ends up being like so expensive, right? Because, you know, mailing things from Canada to the United States is a whole lot more expensive than mailing from the United States across the border further into the States. But you have to cross the border, and I can't do that. Okay, so just to show you, I don't know what's in these binders. It's been a while, right? This is how they drive you nuts, and then they tell you that you're nuts and that you're just rambling, even though you've got the documentation to prove that what you say is true. Okay, well, it's not labeled yet. You know how I like to label things, so I don't know what's in here. I can't remember. Right? And you see, I don't just buy ink and paper, people. Okay, because of my eyesight, and with the pressure in my head, and the, you know, the high responsibility load that I have on a daily basis, you know, and the fact that, you know, I keep moving and bending and lifting and whatever, it's sometimes it's very hard for me to, well, it would be very hard for anybody really to keep track of the shit that I've got in here when it comes to this kind of stuff. Okay. You've seen this kind of stuff on my sewing table. Okay? Once I move it off my sewing table, what happens is, you know, like there's 1, 2, 3, well, at least one full more binder. This other one seems empty, but I don't, like, here's another one. What's in it? Let's find out right now. I don't know what's in here. I'll let you know in a minute. Look at this one. It's even thicker. And look, I took the time to do what? Remember? Right? I'm the one that's being frivolous, okay? I'm just rambling, right? What's in this binder? It's not labeled either. Okay? Obviously not what I'm looking for. Oh, this is YouTube. This is all YouTube. Trademark complaint. Right? Because YouTube completely ignores that. Like, completely, people. It's all about that public humiliation. Right? So, this goes back 2020. It goes back all the way to 2015. And then I liked it better with the way they used to print it out before, because you could actually read the whole title of the videos, right? And then they changed their format, and it's not as good as it used to be. This, what they have, is really, really suffice. But it's just this kind of stuff to document the ongoing gang stalking that not only do I face online, but I've had to face in the house, right? Through various situations with different groups of individuals, whether it was the city, you know, with their knock at the door, whatever. But it's okay, because whatever I've got done in this year, you can mark my words, at the rate things are going out here, like, honest to God, they're laundering fucking houses out here, okay? That greenhouse sits empty nonstop every year. It sells every year, right? Flipping, right? Now, 4 more houses just got fucking bought up for $1.5 million per house. Well, for the house that I know of anyway, in terms of the person who lives in there, who now is facing homelessness within a year or so after they're expected to vacate, so that all 4 houses in a row plus more will be tore down, and they're going to build some, they're going to cut down all the fucking trees out here, people, right? You know, destroy more wildlife, create more homelessness. It's a given. If you vacate 4 houses and there's 1 to 4 suites per house, okay, you're looking at an average of maybe, we'll just say, we'll give it on a good note, 7 to 8 families are going to be displaced, right? In terms of up and down, or if it's a duplex, up and down on both sides. Okay? And, I don't know. Okay, this one here is important. This one, I think, ShaMay helped me to log some of this stuff. I have the Evidence Act, people. Okay? And I like to put them, that's what I was saying, I like to put them in these things, because it's hard for me to keep track of everything, because I'm having to do it all on the fly. I never had the privilege of going to university and having daddy and mommy put me through fucking, you know, class act frickin' education so I could grow up to be a crook, right? Okay? I'm having to do it the hard way. Not being a crook, that is, but learning this stuff, okay? So I can, you know, take on my opponent, basically. This is Fraser Health. This is the authority that I filed a lawsuit against, to which the government needs to be accountable for, because it's their health authority. All right? Then we've got the Health Authorities Act, okay? Right? Because, you know, you want to know what you're fucking dealing with here, and what the rules are, and what their mandates are, even though when you get to court it doesn't mean anything, because they can simply ignore it and call you a frivolous, rambling, fucking embarrassing human being. Then we've got the Canada Health Act, okay? Right? We got the Canada Health Act, which is applicable to a whole lot of situations in my family. Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, right? We've got that. Now, some of these are listed down when ShaMay was alive, and some of them weren't, so I'm going to have to backtrack and find the ones that she listed down. Make sure everything's in order in terms of how they're listed, as to how they're put in their fucking binders, right? And then, you know, just hand it in. We've got the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, okay? So there's 2 parts to this thing. That's part 1, and then there's part 2, which is very thick. And then there's part 3, which is just as thick. Okay? And then there's 4, which is a little thinner. Alright? Oh my God. Now there's 5. Okay? Alright. And then there's 6. My God. How much ink and paper am I wasting for this? Okay? I'd like to know. Right? Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, Schedule 1. Definitions. Schedule 3. What happened to Schedule 2? Must be in with Schedule 1. I don't know. Okay? Oh, there's Schedule 2. It went from 3 to 2. So I have to fix that and make sure it's in order, so that when I log it down in my document list, the government fully understands that it's like a concurrent 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not fucking Common Core. Okay? Not what I'm looking for. in terms of those court rules and guidelines and all that crap. Which is probably down there. Or maybe it's in this bin. Or maybe it's one of these binders over here. Like, this is stupid, people. This is really, really, really stupid, okay? Stupid in the fact that people are backed into a corner where it's either they basically completely give up and just be that bitch, right? Where, you know, their life amounts out to nothing as they watch people around them just crumble, you know? Or you can take a hands-on approach, right? And make your life mean something. Seriously. Okay? And if you can't make it mean something for yourself, then at least make it mean something for your loved ones that didn't make it, but you still here. You see, ShaMay didn't make it. They didn't want ShaMay to make it because she was too freaking smart, people. Okay? She was just young. Her brain hadn't developed yet fully. She was 22, under a high level of cortisol as a result of what government employees in the province of British Columbia, Canada, do to their constituencies. All right. There, I'm rambling now. That's rambling. Okay, now that you know what I'm doing, I haven't gotten into this other bin, and it's like going on midnight, and trust me, I am so tired, okay? I'm so worn out. We already know that. So I just going to have to pace myself. I don't know what's going to happen in the yard. You know, I've got to put this first, and I have to hand in some kind of document list that will be uncompleted. And that's the way I'm going to serve this government, not my government, this government, that the document list is incomplete. But you can see some of the stuff I'm going to be coming in with, right? And we're going to start with Uncle John's stuff because most of it's already typed out. Right? And then I'll just add in Andre's MCFD file through the provincial fucking court in Surrey due to an illegal and wrongful apprehension of a minor child. Because, you know, if they want to follow up on that, they're going to go get all the files, people. They're not just going to come back with just a little packet. Like I've only got the little packet. They only gave me what they wanted me to see, okay? But, of course, they're looking for dirt, right? So they're going to get the whole file. And if they get the whole file first and we're in court, then they have to give me a copy so they can pay for it. Unfortunately, the taxpayers are paying for it, but in this case, it's well worth their investment in terms of that being at arm's length to that legion. Arm's length, being at arm's length. They have no interest, self-interest in saying, yeah, she's doing the right thing, because it could be somebody in my family that has happened to what's happened to her family. God forbid. Now, I'm going to end it on this. I haven't read this, honestly, in years. It's here. You can see this. Right? I probably haven't read this for about 3-4 years. My son wrote this when, I guess he was about 17 or 18 years old. He was still in school. It was, I'm sure, maybe 16. Maybe he was 16, 17, 18. He wrote this for a project at school. My son is 30 years old now. So you do the math. Ask yourself why this is sitting here after all these years. Okay? And like, honestly, I haven't read this in years. I just leave it out here. All I need to know is she inspired me and that my son wrote this in order for me to be able to keep just pushing forward, even though my son can't understand why I can't just get on with my own life and, try and find some peace and, just equilibrium, right? There's no equilibrium in my life because of this overwhelming and overtaking like that big blob. This is a good time to read. Let's see what he had to say. He's 30 years old. We'll say he wrote this when he was 16 or 17. So I'll put it at 16, okay? So that's what, 14 years? 14 years ago? 14, 16, 30, right? Yeah. So he wrote this about 14, 15, 13 years ago. And this thing has been kicking around for years in here. Like, this was here when I was fighting for Uncle John. Okay? I just didn't read it. I just keep it where I can put my hand on it sometimes. Okay. This is what he wrote. She inspires me. I was brought up in a middle-class neighborhood. Big house, 5 bedrooms, big basement, big backyard, and it was the best place we lived in my entire life. My kids were happy people. I built a beautiful playground for them. It was huge. Living in relative security, we were there for 8 years, as a single mother of 5 on welfare. My mom felt quite grateful and wanted to give back to the community. Right? I have always looked up to my mom and her ideas of freedom and justice. Oh my God, how convenient that I'm reading this right now, because it is so important, so crucial, people, to hear those words, that to just reconnect with the good old days when Mom was out there fighting for the community, wanting to bring in youth programs and promote a universal school meal program in Canada and school restoration in the United States of America. I mean, like, it was just, right? That was the message. That's why I went out into the community to do things. That's why I dug deep into my pocket, because I thought, under the governance of British Columbia, Canada, based on how I came out with that 1 foot, in the beginning with the NDP leading that pack at the time, right? I really wanted to make a positive difference, and I really felt that I could, because Canada was a free country where, in BC specifically, we did have a strong union at the time. But little did I know what things were to come through greed, basically. Nothing more than greed. And maybe ego. Okay, let's just focus on this. I have always looked up to my mom and her ideas of freedom and justice. But even I was apprehensive when she suggested to start an NGO to aid in social development. At the time, I was very young and didn't understand the nuance of the political world, how one part gets dominance and the other part gets screwed over. Okay? However, Mom was serious about this undertaking, developing a non-profit organization with plans and ideas like Mom's would have been so helpful to the needy and impoverished. I believe that as a part of society, we should all contribute to society. When Mom set to work, she was doing more than her share of the work. She believed she could succeed. Right? The input society received from Mom was always avoided and passed around until forgotten. For 7.5 long years, My mom worked and made no progress whatsoever. It was a difficult road, people, right? You know, you have these subgroups within a subgroup of a society that they can assimilate and they can move around and among each other, but when it comes to participate as a collective, no. They splinter off into their subgroups. You have the Punjabis over there. You have, you know, the Chinese with whatever, right, as a core group are over there. You've got the Catholics over there. You've got the Muslims over there. You've got the natives over there. You've got the Jamaicans and other black people over there, right? So this is what he's talking about. And because of that, you know, I wasn't black enough when it came to the Jamaicans. I wasn't white enough when it came to the Christian, maybe not the Christians, but more so maybe the Catholics, you know, based on Eleanor Gilding and what she did to John and the rest of his immediate family, right? Just bullshit like that. Having Native people running up and grabbing my you know, New Nations Unity Community Garden sign and running off to management saying she's not allowed to put up New Nations Unity anywhere on a sign because she's not Native. Well, first of all, lady, it has nothing to do with Natives. It has two countries coming together to make that positive change, which requires vision. Something you clearly don't have. I'm rambling now, people. You see, that's what happens when you become a YouTuber. You learn, you just yip, 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 yip. Some people can just ramble on, really, basically about nothing. Anyway, for 7.5 long years, my mom worked and made no progress whatsoever. None of the volunteers were doing work. I had that problem. I think any kind of workforce has that problem, right? More so sometimes if there's no incentive for volunteers, especially when you're a poor person and you basically attract poor people that don't have the resources necessarily to make the commitment to continue to help you for free, when they really need to go out and earn money in order to survive for themselves. So that it's not so much, I mean, there is laziness involved there, you know, right? You have a core group of workers and, you know, the majority will, you know, there's the key players that do the work. And then the other ones just kind of stand around and scuff around and, you know, and find excuses not and blah, and they just offloading, right? And depending on their position, you know, they're either going to get fired or they're not. You see, that's the problem with the public union sector. They can be like that and not work and be assholes and won't get fired. Anyway, every day I would come home from school to see my mom work from the time I came home to the time I went to bed. And yes, people, I put in long hours into the writing of the foundation, into creating a 50-50 that, you know, I put towards the province in terms of I had to get approval from the gaming enforcement branch. It was a 50-50 that I wrote for a year, you know, making application to go in front of the city to be able to do events until 3 o'clock in the morning as a fundraiser to fundraise for the things that I wanted to bring into this community. Whatever it may be, outreach with, you know, NAACP in the United States of America, Al Sharpton. I wrote President Obama when he was a senator, right? Just a few other people in there, right? Governor Rick Perry, Mitch Lujan, you know, he was the mayor of New Orleans. Mitch, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, right? Billy Nunginger, sent him some stuff, sent him do-rags. And he was the president of Plaquemine Parish, right? All took time, people. All took time. Did all the accounting, bookwork, all of it. Mom wrote hundreds of pages, didn't I just say that? Of paperwork a week. I'd put in hours, people. asking for the city to participate and help with social programs she was trying to implement, right? I had to stand there helpless, watching her be refused and shut down at any chance she had. And it's true, it took me a long time to realize that. I was in complete denial, right? It became even worse when welfare reform was implemented. Being a family on welfare and the budget was tight enough, being kicked off welfare made it impossible to live there under the current rent. In other words, I had to move my kids, right? We moved out of that house right at the cusp of growing into a family that was actually a productive, contributing member to the greater good of society, because I was on the right track, people, in terms of working on what I was working on, right? And they just made it harder. All they did was put me in 40 grand in debt. Didn't stop me from trying to do what I needed to do, but I did. I went $40,000 in debt in a period of 6 years just trying to raise my family and continue on promoting the foundation and the initiatives that I was trying to secure under the trademark, so that people would take the trademark, as serious and would feel comfortable to build on the initial program development that created it in the first place, so that we could have a better functioning community, okay? So we moved. The crack dealer living a block away, though, still collected a welfare check while we had to move to a 2-bedroom apartment suite, very tiny. So from a 5-bedroom, beautiful backyard with a playground in it and the whole 9 yards and blah, 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 into a 2-bedroom apartment. That's all I could afford, people, right? And I had to even then break up my kids and secure them with separate households with the bed available, because the fire code apparently for the apartment wouldn't allow me to bring my 5 kids in with me, right? But we only stayed there for 3 months, because when I first moved in, right, they had some kind of leak going on in that bathroom that was flooding the freaking apartment, and it took them a while to fucking fix the stupid shit, right? And it was just crazy, and the people that were running it like a concentration camp. So, and my Sierra got, everybody had their bed in the apartment. Uncle John used to call the boys' room the little yellow submarine, right? Because Uncle John was on one side and Brooks and Marcaine were on the other side in terms of a bunk, right? And then in my bedroom, it was me with my 3 girls, but I still had to secure bed outside of the house and prove it, people. I had to prove it to management that my son had a bed at a different location, Brooks, as well as Sierra, which put Sierra at a greater risk to being exploited with drug addiction, because at that time she was just coming into it and I didn't really fully understand what a meth addiction was or anything, because I've never experienced it before, people. And the people that she was staying with, that mother, she was a mother, people, with her daughter, who was friends with my daughter, apparently was a heroin addict. Like, what the fuck, eh? And she was trying to get Sierra to leave home and live with her so that she could get more money on her welfare check, as her daughter's doing drugs and my daughter was just whatever. So anyway, I only lasted there in that apartment for about 3 months, and then I found that shanty shack, and I lived in that shanty shack for 3.5 years, working on paperwork and going out in the community and promoting goodwill, right? And it's true. The crack dealer, he was a native guy that had murdered somebody. He did 12 years in jail. He got out of jail. Government let him have his kids. He abused his kids. He got his kids addicted to drugs when they were 11 years old, and he was sleeping with 14-year-olds. That's where Sierra really started doing drugs. And the cops didn't do shit about it, people. They didn't do shit about it. He destroyed his kids, literally. It was intolerable to live in those conditions, slipping through your doorway because your previous possessions, take up too much room in your small living space. Having to stop at the food bank to pick up donations because we couldn't afford food was hard to submit myself to. I kept thinking, why doesn't she give up? Oh, my kids got mad at me over the years, off and on. Why does she believe after all the crap? I have never seen someone more stubborn and optimistic than my mom. Growing up, I soon became jealous of the nonprofit. Soon I hated it. I never let my mom learn about my hatred because I didn't want to cause more stress for her than the huge amounts she gets every day. The thing was in my way, and he's not the only one who felt that way, people. Okay? They still struggle with it even after all this time, right? Well, why don't you just let it go, Mom? You're not going nowhere. Nobody cares. You've suffered and you've given enough, and I'm like, yeah. Okay. I'm reminiscing. The thing was in my way. It took from me and sent the family spiraling into debt. It was ruining our lives. You see, it's not that it put the family in debt, but it did, people, because I was already committed with 2 federal governments to go out in the community and walk the talk. If I didn't walk the talk, I couldn't secure the trademark. So, you can't do things unless you spend money. You can't do things unless you get involved, right? You can't do things unless you're willing to take the risks and the punches as you go along the way, right? So it wasn't like I could just simply walk away. I was in deep, right? And I wasn't going to throw away X amount of effort, time, money, sweat, tears, all that crap, sacrifice, whatever it was, just because, right? No, I was determined to do what I know is capable of being done. If people could just wrap their heads around it and have some vision and actually come together and participate versus just assimilate. But you see, they don't need to participate because if you look around my neighborhood, business is booming, right? The houses are being torn down and something else is being built in its replace, right? Which stimulates that part of the economy over there to which the government caters to. It took from me and sent the family spiraling into debt. It was ruining our lives, yet she still went on, pursuing the dream of a better world where the youth were properly supported. The government was shooting down all of our attempts to start the heart of it. Every way we turned, it was blocked. the government actually singled us out to blot out any attempts to try again. Yeah, over a period of years, right? Right? There's key things that they do to derail you from actually being successful and maybe being popular and actually doing the right thing, so that there's a comparison to hold up against the government who says they're doing the right thing but maybe not necessarily are. You see, you can't compare anything to the government because they will take out their competition before they would allow their competition to be successful. When I founded the nonprofit, I didn't know that. I didn't know that they were that fucking insecure that they would literally go out of their way to destroy a whole family just so they can keep control of, one, I guess you could say, the economy, when you look at the nonprofit and the way it was set up and what it could potentially do for the community that is at arm's length or independent to the government. I'm just rambling. Just a talking point. It was horrible. I felt as if all hope was lost. What about the point? What was the point of trying anymore? I started to protest attempts at achieving a workable angle to improve. I argued that we should just stop and recoup our losses. The possibility of bankruptcy was looming, and living on the streets would have been our only other option. Mom couldn't work. Our grandpa's pension could only pay for so much. Life was don't forget, I went $40,000 into debt, people. Okay? So don't think, oh, Uncle John was, paying the way. No, he supplemented the household income just as much as I supplemented the household income. He did the morning shift, I did the night shift. Life was looking bleak and mournful. I began to wait for the wash of politics to envelope our family and identities. Because you have to remember, they were running me around like I was some hot potato or some football. They'd pass me to one MLA, to another MLA, to another MLA, and then they send me back to the same MLA that had already sent me to that MLA. Right? All giving me the old okie dokie. As I'm typing and writing and, Life was looking bleak and mournful. I began to wait for the wash of politics to envelope our family and identities. But my mom kept going, and she was just as depressed as me, and ranting with me about how we should just give up and drop it. Even so, the pages kept being wrote. The books kept being balanced. Right? And the nonprofit was still running. Eventually, I realized that the nonprofit acted as Mom's test, a test to see if society was still human. I realized she found tooth and nail for no gain and constant loss. I was stressed beyond limits. I couldn't keep up in school. I had no money. The money from the job I had was short-lived. I developed a mental illness and put our family through times. It was pure luck I got through it fine in one piece. Initially, I didn't tell because, you go from a big house one day and you wake up and poof, you're in a fucking leaky apartment with, the general, patrolling the halls, right? And, yeah, that in itself, for young people to suddenly have happened to, is extremely hard on them, right? Especially when you don't see it coming, people. I was cut off within a month. They told me in December of 2002 that if I didn't go and pick tomatoes, they gave me 3 options. Pick tomatoes, it was go work in a chicken plant, got chickens, or something else, that they were going to cut me off in the beginning of 2003. I said, I can't do that. I have my kids, my stepdad's blind, right? Basically, right? He can't be at the house with the kids by himself, he's right. He's old, right? Well, he wasn't that old, but, he was just, it wouldn't have worked, okay? And they said, fine. And they did. I didn't get my January of 2003 welfare check. Okay? They just cut me off. And then, when they gave me back Andre, and this subject came up, whoever was working with me at that time on the paperwork, because you have to fill out paperwork, then it goes to the judge, and then the judge decides what he's going to do with the child, whether you get the child back or not. Well, anyway, I got Andre back. But at that time, that subject came up, and that individual was trying to suggest that I made that decision for myself, that I just one day woke up and decided not to accept a welfare check because I just wanted to go out in the world and, brave everything all by myself with my 5 dependent children and Uncle John. And I'm like, no. No, I was cut off. And then I find out as I'm working on Uncle John's stuff, boy, this long video, as I'm working on Uncle John's stuff and I'm doing more research and I'm reading the legislation, people, and I'm coming into articles that relate to the legislation, blah, 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 blah. That's when I find out that I was illegally cut off of welfare 9 months in advance before the legislation even came into effect. And then when they did bring it in, they had to retract it and cancel it because it was unconstitutional. But the damage was already done with my family. And that, is just another dot in that long line of dots that hopefully an impartial judge will actually take the time to look at. But that would require pulling up my welfare file and for the government to go in there and look deep when we're talking 2003, 2002. Okay? But they need to do that. Because all that did was put Sierra at a greater risk to drug addiction in terms of having her become a fucking drug addict full time. Because of that displacement, right? Of, losing our family home of 8 years. And then having to psychologically say, well, you can't be in the apartment with us, even though your bed is here. You kind of have to, make it look like you're staying over there because otherwise I'll be homeless with 5 kids and Uncle John out in the fucking street with no place to go. Right? So, of course, that puts Sierra at risk to be exploited through the predators within the neighborhood that, were using their kids to draw other kids into drug addiction and into crime, petty crimes, stealing people's purses on the streets and doing shit like that. As some of them were actually sleeping with these kids, while the cops and so-called neighborhood social workers didn't do shit about it. And I think in part it was because they were native, right? These were native families. They didn't do nothing. Nothing. I used to run down the streets chasing Sierra with 20 kids. Like 20 kids running away with Sierra in that group, and I'm chasing at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get my daughter out of that fucking group. So I could ground her. In terms, not ground her like you're grounded, but like get her, connected to home. Right? Oh boy. Okay. It was pure luck I got through it fine and in one piece. Initially, I didn't tell anyone in my family and found help elsewhere. But during an argument with my mum, the truth slipped and suddenly she knew. My mum, she inspires me. Caught in a never-ending game of cat and mouse, never reaching the end of all the crap. She still moves on, whether she likes it or not. She continues. The politics that forced us out of our home oppressed us as well. My mum, never able to achieve the most honorable thing a person can do, help those less fortunate. A selfless being that wishes nothing but good for anyone. Nothing but good for anyone. That's my mom. So now I just put it back. Now I've read it, I don't have to read it again for another 4 more years. But I'll keep it close to me for whatever reason. Right? Because it's been a long haul, people. You know, but through it all, it made me grow gills. Okay. And some balls. Hair on my chest. Like a monkey. Right? Isn't that a war beat? What can I say? Okay, so we know the plans then, right? Look for the rules, the regulations, and then tomorrow I'm going to phone the courthouse. I'm going to book a time for the library. I'm going to gather up the document list that is already printed out. I'll add in another page, and if I remember correctly, when CIBC Bank served me, okay, they didn't have their whole I don't know where their paperwork is. I could probably find it, hopefully in the next day or two if I look hard enough. So I'm going nothing on but memory here. But if I remember correctly, they just submitted affidavits with Exhibit 1, Exhibit 2, Exhibit 3. And then in that exhibit was just a general description of what was in that particular exhibit, if I remember correctly. And that's how you avoid writing 500 individual, for that document list. It comes in under an exhibit, a little more condensed. So that's how I'm going to try and approach this. I'm going to try and get that ready so that when I go to the library, after I'm done getting the right form, I just go to the registry and I serve them. Like I file it with the registry, and then I'm pretty sure they'll tell me to sign that piece of paper and send it back. So if that's the case, right, if I remember correctly, I'll just put in whatever exhibits I have into that envelope and I'll send them off at the same time. And then what will happen is I call them on it, because I'll have to go fill out a paper requesting a court date, right? And then I have to estimate approximately how much time I think we need for trial, because I'm going to ask for a trial, right? Like I did with Uncle John. And then you send it off to them somehow, some way. And then, of course, you get your little mini trial. But it's not a trial. That's the thing, though. They turn it into a trial, but it's not a trial, right? Because they immediately come in wanting to dismiss it with their copy and paste famous words, right, that they use as a winning hand for people like me. And, of course, the judge, more than likely, won't be impractical, won't be impartial, right? I mean, we got to give the New Westminster Courthouse some credit, right? In terms of how they treated me on that day, right? I'd like to think it will continue on that way, but I'm a little leery about coming into contact with an impartial judge. It would be amazing if we did, because this is now, we come full circle to this video, right? In terms of me turning it back on. This is where I have to, I don't want to say have faith, but, you know, based on everything that we know in regards to how society is supposed to work and things being at arm's length in order for it to work correctly, the judge should be impartial to the province because they operate on a federal level, right? So therefore, they would, you know, I mean, I'm going to remind them that they can't be biased simply because the province has maybe more seniority versus a poor person coming in representing their family and themselves as well as their community, right? Because any justice that comes to my family, it trickles out into the community, right? And that's what makes me think of this, because it's based on the same principle that I've basically always had people. Doing it for all the right reasons, right? You heard it from my son back in the day. It was stressful, right? It was enough that we lost our house and everything and blah, blah, blah. But then to have to go out there and do the majority of the work and pay as you do it, go into debt and be mistreated, be ran around town like, you know, that hot potato in between all those MLAs, misleading me to think that I could maybe be able to do something of substance so that I could help. Like I said earlier in my last video, they're not interested in having people help them. Unless, of course, it's on their terms. Right? Outside of that, they just want to control us and exploit us. So, if I wouldn't have done what I did, I wouldn't be doing the things I am doing today. Right? So, I guess that stuff is just the prelude for this stuff. It just prepared me. So I think I can do what I need to do, right, in terms of meeting that 35-day plea period, which, again, I'm not too sure about. So that's why I got to call the courthouse tomorrow and book an appointment to the library. And go on my memory as to what I think needs to be done. And it probably will work out that way.